What is going on? Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you're doing well. Now, op shops, thrift stores, charity stores, whatever you call them, that's what we're talking about today. So, up until just before this most recent lockdown, which is over, thank God, cheers to that, I'd never had much luck at the op shops. You know, I always enjoy checking them out when I get the opportunity, and I always enjoy the thrill of the hunt in potentially uncovering some vintage toys at a Vinnie's or a Salvo's, just like I see other people do on social media. But for me, it's just, I've never had that much success. But just before the most recent lockdown, I decided that I was going to cast the net a little bit wider, you know, above and beyond vintage action figures and retro video games, and look into the other nostalgic, you know, relics of the 80s and 90s. You know, the board games, the books, the VHS, these types of things. And wouldn't you know it, I have stumbled across a couple of pretty cool things to add to the collection, and today I'm just going to run through them pretty quickly and show you what I got. Alrighty, so first up we've got an 80s game that I could not pass up for a grand total of $2 at a Salvo store. And I'm talking about 1985's Bedbugs. Now, I didn't own this game as a kid. I don't even think I've played this game before. But, you know, my memories of this game are from the commercials that used to play in the late 80s here in Australia.
Bedbugs! Hey, we've been discovered!
We're the Bedbugs. Catch us if you can. We're the Bedbugs.
Hey guys, better scram!
We're the Bedbugs. Catch us everyone. We're the Bedbugs.
Look out! Here they come!
Bedbugs is the frantic catch and capture game where you pick a color,
Green.
then scramble to catch the most bugs.
We're the Bedbugs. Gather from our run. We're the Bedbugs.
I win!
Bedbugs, gonna drive you buggy.
And this version of Bedbugs is in really awesome shape. The box is in great condition. How can you not love that cover art? You know, you got the obligatory shot of the kids having a wonderful time, as was, you know, as was a necessary component to any 80s toy packaging. You know, we've got all of the coloured tongs and Bedbugs, you know, included, which is great because, I mean, how easy would it be for some of these tiny little components to get lost? We've got the instructions, and as a little bonus, we've even got a 1980s Milton Bradley catalogue or a little brochure here showing a lot of the other games that they released at similar sort of times. And the one that stands out to me that I definitely had as a kid is this version of Operation. Had an absolute ball with that. So yeah, really happy to have Bedbugs in the collection for $2 at a Salvo's. What's not to love? Alrighty, so next up we've got another 80s game. This one I know nothing about. It's How to Host a Murder, the Class of 54. So from what I understand, this is basically a kit that gives you everything you need to host a murder mystery party. So I'm talking like a run sheet to host the event, little envelopes with clues and backstories to characters, and even like fun little additions like a menu. So, you know, you're all set up to host a murder mystery dinner, which from what I understand, I think it was maybe a bit of a thing in the 80s. You know, I've got a vague memory of my parents either hosting or being invited to a murder mystery party when I was really young. So I guess this was somewhat of a thing in the 80s. I mean, I found it pretty cool. Once again, it's almost complete. It's got all the cool little elements in there. I don't think I'm going to be hosting a murder mystery anytime soon, but I just thought it would look cool on the shelf. And you know, we've got the stamp of approval from Mr. Vincent Price himself, so you know it's got to be good. How to Host a Murder is going on the shelf. And once again, I think this was maybe $2 or $3. I don't know. If anyone can shed any more light on this, if anyone has any kind of first-hand memories of this or these types of you know, games from the 80s, drop me a comment. Next up, we've got a couple of VHS tapes. I think I'd probably pick these up for $1 a piece. First one is the early 90s Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, one of my favorites from Jim Carrey, and a movie that I remember watching for the first time with my cousin that we rented from the video store. So I'm pretty happy to pick this up for $1, and this will go nicely on the VHS shelf that you see over here. So that's a good pickup. And next up, a true relic of the past. we've got a sealed blank VHS tape. Now, I don't know about you guys, for me recording live TV, even through like a TiVo device or a Foxtel IQ, it's pretty much a thing of the past. I mean, most of what I watch these days, I either watch it live if it's sport, or if not, it's pretty much all on demand. But, back in the day, we lived by these things. I clearly remember having a stack of these at home, but they weren't minty sealed like this. They'd been taped and taped over a million times. But, if there was something you wanted to watch that you weren't going to be there in front of the telly for, we all remember that feeling of either asking your mum or your dad or your brother or sister to queue up the VCR to record something on one of these, or going down the technologically innovative approach back in the day of programming that VCR yourself and hoping that the VHS gods are on your side and everything gets taped as expected. I mean, these were awesome back in the day, and seeing this, feeling this in my hand, takes me back to the day where, this could be anything. I mean, in my case, this was probably going to be used to record a mashup of music videos off TV. I definitely used these to record music videos off like Rage. And also I remember taping wrestling segments on these a little bit later on. So really happy to have this. This will display nicely, and I've got no idea what it is, but this is an SVHS, Super VHS, which I don't even remember being a thing. I don't know what makes it a Super VHS, but I've got it, so and I'm going to display it proudly. Alrighty, so next up I picked up a little bag of toys. I mean, we've all seen those Ziploc bagged or taped up bags of toys bundled up at thrift stores, op shops, and I picked this one up for a couple of reasons. A few of the things in the bag are newer stuff. I've got no interest in them. But what made me pick this bag up were some of these little, mid to late 80s McDonald's Muppet Babies toys. So they're all just bits and pieces. We've got a Miss Piggy. We've got a Kermit. We've got Animal, I think this little guy is. And then I think this Huey, Dewey and Louie's another Macca's toy. I think this might be one of the DuckTales Macca's toys, also maybe from the late 80s, early 90s, I'm not sure. So, that's a fun little lot for a buck. I'll keep my eye out for the other items to complete that little lot, because that Muppet Babies Macca's toy lot is definitely one of the more memorable ones from my childhood. So I want to try and complete that. So, I got a nice little start for $1. The kind of annoying thing about that is when I picked up that little bag of toys, someone had put a hole in it, and a few of the things had kind of spilled out all over the place. So who knows what was in there? That was kind of my first thought when I picked up that bag. It's like, awesome, there's a couple of cool things here for the collection, but I was kind of racking my brain as to what else could have been in there. But anyway, that's a fun little lot for $1. And next up we go through some books. And what got me thinking about books is, and I think I mentioned this briefly during my collection room tour video, a few months back, I was at my mum's place, and she had a stack of books that she had, tucked away from when I was a kid. And it kind of got me thinking about the nostalgia that I have for all those different types of books that captured my imagination, that caught my attention as a kid. So now when I'm at the op shops, when I'm at a Salvo's or a Vinnie's, I'm starting to keep my eye out for those sorts of things to add to the collection as well. And I got a couple here that I picked up. So the first one is this hardcover Timeless Legends book. So, illustrated books about myths and legends and, mysteries and monsters. All those types of things definitely captured my attention, caught my imagination as a kid. And, we're talking things like the Minotaur and the Labyrinth and, the Trojan Horse and Sword in the Stone. Beautiful artwork. I mean, stuff like they just don't make anymore. So for $1 or $2, I had to pick this one up. Alrighty, so the next book from 1993 is basically a volume of Dinosaurs magazines. Now, I'm not sure if anyone remembers these. I was obsessed with them as a kid. We're basically talking about these kind of weekly or monthly, I can't remember what they were, Dinosaurs magazines published by Orbis that came out in the early 90s. They came with, this is the first issue, it came with a pair of 3D glasses, and each issue came with essentially like a piece of a Builder figure. It was actually really awesome. see like this, glow-in-the-dark skeleton, and once you finish the skeleton, I think it was like the first 15 to 20 issues each came with a bone to build the skeleton, and once you went to issue 16 to 30 or 40, it came with the actual exterior pieces of the body of the T-Rex to complete it. I mean, I was obsessed with this as a kid. Like I said, the first issue came with a pair of 3D glasses, and each of these magazines had, like a centerfold 3D picture, and these are just awesome. Like, trivia, but awesome artwork. I mean, I'm not quite sure why a magazine about dinosaurs has a fire-breathing dragon in it. I mean, I think it was kind of part fact, but they weren't letting the truth get in the way of entertaining the kids. Awesome artwork. So these are really nostalgic for me. I picked these up as part of a lot. I don't know, maybe late last year. Really cheap, but there's that skeleton. But seriously, there's some vintage toys that are definitely high on the Grail list, but you'll be hard pressed to find a higher, more desirable, holy Grail item for me than this skeleton. Because these weren't, I don't believe these were made to the highest quality standard. So, you'd break it as you were putting it together. So who knows how many of these are left out there. But anyway, I'm trying to hunt one of these down. But I've gone right off on a tangent here. But the next book that I picked up is basically just a bundled kind of batch of these dinosaurs magazines. So, nothing that I don't already have, because I've already got the magazines, but once I saw this iconic font of this dinosaur's header here, I couldn't not pick that up. So happy to add this one to the collection. Alrighty, so next up we've got another early 90s book. This one's the Unsolved Mysteries Project book. Like I mentioned, anything back in the day that was talking about mysteries and monsters and the unknown definitely captured my imagination. And this book's pretty cool. I mean, this is all about the Bermuda Triangle, the Curse of Tutankhamun, UFOs, the Loch Ness Monster, all these kind of awesome things that, well, let's be honest, it wasn't just back in the 80s and 90s that it captured my imagination. It still does. So I couldn't not pick this one up. So this is a fun one. This made me think of a series of books that I had as a kid that again are really high on my wish list that I'm looking out for. A series of books produced by Usborne. I think the company called Usborne, and I think the series of books were called Mysteries of the Unknown or World of the Unknown. And there was one book about monsters, one book about UFOs, and one book about ghosts. Now, I can jump on eBay and pick up the original prints for like $50 to $100 a book. They've even like reprinted them that I can pick up, newer versions for maybe $12, $15, $20 a book. But I made it a mission. I've waited this long, so I'm going to try and find them in the wild. Find them at a thrift store or a collector fair, something like that. So the Unsolved Mysteries Project book definitely made me think of those books from my childhood. I couldn't not pick this one up. Alrighty, so last but definitely not least, my favourite pickup of the bunch, we've got 1988's A Fiendish Pull-the-Tab pop-up book of classic tales of horror. Now, I think I mentioned during my VHS movie pickups video that I was really into classic monsters as a kid. I collected the monsters in my pocket toys. Like I mentioned, I was into the Mysteries of the Unknown, monsters, ghosts, and UFOs books. So this is right up my alley. And in this book, we've just got some amazing pop-up artwork of monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula, Sleepy Hollow, the Phantom of the Opera. Just really, really cool stuff. It's a little bit worn. It's showing some sign of age. But I mean, this thing's over 30 years old and it still works beautifully. The artwork is amazing. I tell you, they just don't make books like they used to. Or maybe they do, and I just need to go to my local bookstore and pick some up, because this is awesome. Stoked to put that on the shelf. And, how can you not pick that up for $1? Maybe this might have been $2. but really happy with the classic Tales of Horror pop-up book from 1988. So there you have it, some fun additions to my collection, probably for a grand total of about $12. But more importantly, my faith, my hope in finding relics of the 80s and 90s at the Aussie Op Shop has been restored. So I'm very happy about that. So that's it for today. I'll be back with my next video, which will be a personal grail toy find from the late 80s. So I'm excited to share that with you. But until then, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Hope to hear from you in the comments. And as always, cheers.